What's up, everybody? Welcome to another special edition of Tequila Tuesday from Scotty's Little Sales Club, brought to you by my good friends at Sendoso, Scotty's Little Sales Club's sending partner. Check out sendoso.com. We're here with my friend and sometimes golf buddy here in Austin, Texas, Jake Dunlap. Jake is kind enough to bring Kevin Dorsey and I out to his country club every now and then and sit through me losing about 11 balls or so per 18-hole course. Couple sleeves of balls usually disappear when we're playing, but Jake is a sales leader, CEO, founder of Skaled. If you don't know Skaled, I'll drop the link in the chat for everybody along with Jake's LinkedIn profile. You should give him a follow or connect with him if he has room in his connections. He's going to talk to us today about the buyer's journey. So I'll kind of get out of the way a little bit and let Jake take over. Jake, you're a co-host. If you got slides or anything to share, you should be able to do that. If not, no worries. We are here to learn from you.
Cool. All right, y'all. Well, welcome. If people want to maybe drop in just like roles, I'm always a big fan of just understanding, or Scott, we've got more, AEs, SDRs, mix, you can tell me what we've got. Had a customer success in there as well.
There's a good number of like sales leaders that are in the group. People have been in sales a good amount of time. There's a couple founders, lots of AEs in the group. I know Kelsey's a CSM. We got a pretty diverse mix.
Yeah, cool. All right, well, that's cool.
All right, Skews a little bit senior, I would say. Skews a little bit.
Okay, good. John Stern is just purely his full-time job is pick and rolls. So I can definitely get down with that. So this should be a lot of fun. So cool. So yeah, I mean, look, I'll kind of get it kickstarted, Scott, and then you can, we can kind of, if you got some Q&A or if everyone wants to jump into some Q&A, and I do have some, we'll see. I was just going to pull up some stuff too, but I'll get into that maybe a little bit later. But I think the big trend that we're seeing. So for those of you who don't know Skaled, we're about a 40 something person sales consulting firm. We do quite a bit of work. We work with hundreds of companies every year on either process improvement, how to be generating more leads or interacting better at the top of the funnel, sales methodology, account growth processes, and then sales technology. We are, really, I think we've done more pure sales technology implementations than anyone on the planet. We've preferred partner of outreach and Sales Loft and Insight Squared and Seismic. So we do a few hundred sales tech deployments every year. And, we really try to marry this intersection we have today of, process optimization with tech optimization. And, companies are investing more and more in tech and not seeing results. And so we kind of help to bring all this together. So that's about me. Previous life, I started a company 9 years ago. I was a VP of sales at a few startups, Glassdoor, and a startup in New York called Chartbeat as well. And, I still am deep in the game. I'm having sales calls on, 4 or 5 a week. We have a director of sales, but I'm still very much in the game and still very much consider myself, although I run a consulting practice, a practitioner. I'm talking to, probably hundreds to 1,000, VPs of sales and CEOs every, what do you call it? All right. Well, I appreciate that. For me, I'll just kind of tell you the big kind of picture things that if I were in all of your shoes, what I would be thinking about. And when it comes to kind of customer and buyer trends. And the first thing to kind of, I guess, elaborate or just get everyone in the right mindset is think about the evolution of our B2C journey. I don't know how many of you are on TikTok. I don't know how many of you, obviously, if you're not on TikTok, you're probably on Instagram. All of you are on Amazon. And the reality is in our consumer behavior, we are making think about Zillow as well too. We are making larger and larger and larger purchases, not necessarily based on the highest quality thing, but based on speed and availability. And why this is so important is what we are being trained to do in our B2C lives is not deal with the bullshit. Look, I do not want to hop on a call. Like, dude, I have done this. I've looked at this. I've done this. It's click to buy, etc. And if you juxtapose that, which is one of my favorite words to try to use in context, to B2B buying in particular, is B2B buying, it couldn't be further from the opposite. B2B buying is like, we have one way and path. and it better go down the medic path or the whatever path. And these people have to be involved. And we put up barriers to entry at each step and qualification criteria and all this crap. And then we oversell the product in sales because sales and CS have two different leaders with disaligned incentives. I'd be curious to know if any of you have a sales comp plan that disincentivizes churn, right? That's like very few people. Full cycle AE, maybe Brian does. What's up, Brian, by the way? And I think what we're seeing is that B2B is continuing to plod along, pretty much doing a sales cycle that Jill's, are you working at my company? Jill, this is like every company, so do not feel like you are on an island here, Jill Island. We continue. I mean, it's really not that different than it was like 6 years ago. The B2B experience where we have this kind of one size fits all, and so much of this is based on what I call intent. That customers today, and HubSpot's been saying this for a long time, but they were so far ahead of the curve, it really wasn't applicable to really a lot of other software providers, is people are coming in with the intent of like, all I want to do, it's $15,000. Why do I have to talk to somebody? I talked to my 4 peers on, Scotty's Sales Club. They all said I should buy this piece of software. It's $2,000 a month. Why do I have to talk to somebody? Let me just go click the button, buy. I'll talk to you later. And I'll take care of doing whatever it is. Then you have other people who are like, hey, I've done research. I need to talk to somebody, right? And then there's people I've done a ton of research and I barely need to talk to somebody. And then there's people that have done no research. And again, all of this information didn't used to exist. But today we have to start to think about the way that we build, what I call intent-based sales paths for people that want to click to buy. My friends, if you don't think people are going to be click to buying $50,000 to $100,000 software in the next 5 years, it's probably like the same guys who said before COVID, nobody will ever buy a 7-figure deal over, the internet. You got to be there to shake hands. Like, buyers don't want that. We want speed. How many of you, this is my favorite exercise, how many of you out there, I would ask you, have picked a different item than you originally wanted to buy on Amazon because it wasn't next day delivery in the last week? How many of you? Yeah, all of you. I mean, everyone does this. So think about that. I'm willing to take what I perceive as a somewhat inferior product purely due to speed. McKinsey put out a stat. This is like years ago, maybe like 5 years ago, where in their data, that was then, speed was 2 times more important than like certain feature sets. And so I just feel like, to kind of, and then we can get into some of the questions here and some of the details here. I just feel like we are stuck in B2B sales where we know that this is happening. We see it because we're living it in our day-to-day, but we're continuing to build sales organizations and sales processes the way our dad did, right? The way that like this guy built it, who actually was based off of this guy who guess what? That was like in the 90s or 2000s built it. Medic, just so you all know, was founded in the 90s. It's like literally, it's a 30-year-old way to do deal frameworks. Whenever there's one single buyer who would buy things on high, the decision-making path was very linear. We weren't in this consensus-based buying world. Medic is still an okay deal framework, so I'm not shitting on Medic here. But I do think that we have to stop thinking of Medic and some of these as qualification frameworks versus deal frameworks. So the kind of the end point here, for me to kind of let all of you think about is mapping your customer journey is more important than ever. From how they find out about you, and based on how they find out about you, what's your first interaction with them like? Is it still one size fits all? Does every single person have to go through the same steps? Or if on the first call, I say, look, Scott, I've talked to this company, and this company. I've actually already went to my boss and I've got approval for like X. How do we make this happen? And for that buyer, if you're then your first call is like, well, let me ask you a few questions here. It's like, oh my God, please stop. Like, dude, I am telling you this. Listen to me, what I'm telling you. So we just have to make sure that we're putting people in that process based on where they're at in the buying process. It doesn't mean that we have to, at the late stages, make them understand the importance of implementation and deployment. But we do have to think about getting them through the process faster. And then the last part of that, and we've got some CS folks in there, is the handoff and expectation set between sales and CS is laughable. Like the actual lift for most software versus what is promised to people. Oh my God, it's so easy to get started. Our CS team will do everything, and CS is like, I hate all of you. And there's no incentive, you know? What's up, dude? He's in here getting some sales knowledge. I'll try to stop. Hopefully you got headphones on there, John, or I'll stop dropping the bombs there. So I think that's the last part of this process that's broken, is that because many times the sales leader isn't in charge of CS, which I think is a massive mistake, by the way. I would never take a VP of sales job if I wasn't also in charge of growth, because that way I want to incentivize the whole revenue machine of getting people in the door and growing the right way and getting the right companies in the door and growing. So we've got these kind of disincentivized weird customer at the top of the funnel and the post-sales process. And I think the companies that are going to win in 2023 and beyond are companies that realize that I should have a more B2C feel to my sales experience and customer journey. So with that being said, I will pause. And Scott, I don't know if, we want to jump into some Q&A, but that's really, and obviously I can go deeper on parts of this, but, I just want to kind of level set with everyone that, trends that we're seeing. And just, I think if you really take a step back, I don't think it's that difficult to see that we're heading, this way.
One thing that I'm wondering if you could expand upon or clarify is you said that you would never take a VP of sales role without being in charge of CS as well. So you could kind of align all that stuff. Possible counterpoint to that.
Yeah.
What if you're like a first-time VP of sales or even a second-time VP of sales? Because I know you, and you've done this many times. I'm thinking to myself, would I do that if I went back? And I'm like, yeah, because I would take a CRO role, not a VP of sales role. So I would want to do that as well. But we've done that a bunch of times. So I'm wondering if your positioning is different, if it's somebody who's here or listening that's in their first or second VP of sales kind of gig. Because I don't know that I want somebody looking for their first VP of sales gig going, I also should be in charge of customer success.
Yeah, I don't know it any other way. Like, meaning it both at Glassdoor and Chartbeat, I was the VP of sales and success. For me, I think, and maybe again, I'm just maybe it's just my thought process. At the end of the day, a whole revenue organization has one job, and it's to create power users. That's it. A sales team job should be to sell a deal, to do whatever, to get people to power using your product. It doesn't matter. Like, I think sometimes we look at this so fragmented. At the end of the day, what does every software company want? Power. Like, that is the ultimate output. A deal is a phase of that customer journey. A qualified meeting is a phase of that journey. So for me, I guess in my mind, I always thought about, like, I want to make sure that our sales team is well, yeah, if the product doesn't, well, if the product doesn't work well, like, I'm not an engineer. So that's my, like, Achilles heel. So, but I guess, Scott, how I always thought about it, and I was a sales manager before, and I don't know, I guess I didn't think about it any differently, was, from sales development, I want to make sure that handoff and that customer experience is fantastic. So I'll give you a good example at that part of the funnel, then I'll get to the CS side. It's also why I don't think that, I've seen the marketing thing work for SDRs, but sometimes not. But I want that SDR to say, hey, you know what? I'm really looking forward to teeing up conversation with Scott on for you. He's my account executive. He's really an expert in fintech. So I'm really excited to tee up that conversation for you, as opposed to, like, great, I'm going to set up a call with my account executive. Like, yuck. So, like, if you have a discontinued customer experience there, well, that's kind of crappy. There's not like a continuity there. And then on the flip side, I want to make sure that my sales team knows we sell good deals. We sell good deals. And guess what? The buck stops with me, that I can create the right behaviors for sales teams to sell the right type of deals and the right types of companies, and doesn't overpromise, as opposed to just, like, tossing it over the fence. Again, it's pretty shocking to me. Mark Roberge at HubSpot created a disincentive, and that was like 13 years ago. And for some reason, that whole idea never really took off, that sales is also responsible for the success of a company. Think about how insane is that? Sales is not responsible for the success of the client. So Scott, to kind of very long-winded way to answer your question, like, I just can't imagine a world where you wouldn't want someone to care about, again, assuming the product works, to Ryan's point, someone who uses the product like that, like that's what I want. That's what I want to sell and work and use.
But couldn't you solve that problem through the incentive plan, through the comp plan?
I think you could solve part of it, sure. Yeah. And I'll tell you, actually,
it's a lot to manage two departments when you've never really managed one before, I think. I don't have the same experiences as you though. Like,
yeah, I mean, that's possible.
I didn't run both.
For me, and I want to be clear here because I'm using this kind of language interchangeably. So I managed account management. I had a counterpart, and let me tell you what we did that I thought was beautiful and extremely smart at Chartbeat. So I managed sales development, sales, and account growth. The usage team, we had report into product. So customer success, what you would call customer success, which is like, are they using it, etc., that rolled into product. And so I ran the growth team and was partnered with my counterpart in product who ran the success team, because at the end of the day, if the product is broke, people don't know how to use it, that's product. So I want to kind of create that caveat that I want to own the growth team. I don't need to own the usage team. That doesn't, I actually thought that what we did at Chartbeat was pretty novel, to have the team report to product.
Cool.
So,
all right, let's go. We got a question from Steven Duerbecker. Steven, take yourself off mute.
Yeah. So if the process is changing, obviously the sales process, if we move forward, like to large companies like Amazon, where we are going to head towards more of a, I just want to buy, click it and pay, don't want to talk to anybody. What do you think the future of sales and sales departments are moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is not a doom and gloom for salespeople. This isn't will be replaced. Now, will there be a certain buyer type that doesn't necessarily need as much of that? Probably, right? In my mind, what sales is going to become more of is project, like, think about in your personal life. You want to talk with people who add value. And if I don't know the industry really well, I don't know what you're going through, I don't know how to project manage so I can take work off your plate, do you have any value to really offer me in the process? If you're not going to PM this whole deal for me and how I'm going to roll it out, if you're not going to like help me to think through it because you really know my industry and kind of pain points and as a buyer persona, I think if you don't know how to project manage and kind of shepherd a process through, I don't think you'll be employed for very long. I mean, that would be my like very real answer. So I think the skill sets that it's going to take to be a successful seller in 5 to 10 years are going to look a little different. So will you still need salespeople? Sure. Is how the buyer interacting and what buyers want from that salesperson, I think that's what's going to change. So I think that the salesperson's job is, candidly, it's what A players already do. They consult. Hey, let's talk through it. What are you trying to accomplish here? Okay, here's where you're at on the intent. You've done this. Okay, let me get you access to that information. That's the other big thing that we suck at sales is transparency. Well, you're not supposed to talk price on the first call. You're not supposed to do this on the first call. You're not supposed to do, like, yuck. Dude, oh my God, can you imagine that? Like, I mean, it used to happen in B2C. It's like you had to fill out a form and then you'd see the price and think, it's like, now it's like, what if you had to go to Zillow and fill out a form to see the house prices? Like, it's just the most revolting thing to think about. So I think it just turns into more of a salesperson role is to help to shepherd a customer to the right decision, which again, really isn't that different. But I think, again, if a salesperson can't add value in the process, then that's when they're really going to become obsolete. That a buyer isn't going to want to talk to somebody who really doesn't understand what's actually happening in their space. And the sad part is I think we continue to underinvest in teaching reps what the buyer actually cares about and the industry that they serve, which will become the required skills for people to want to interact with someone in the future.
That's so true. all the work that I do, the one part of onboarding and training new hires that they put the least amount of effort into is teaching people about the buyer and the industry and all that kind of stuff.
I just don't get it. I got to be honest, Scott.
It's pulling teeth to get people to do it.
I really don't get it. I mean, I'll never forget. I was at Career Builder to keep. This is 2006, so this will date me. Dude, I got a binder, and I swear to God, it was this thick with like industry trends, and it was like, and in our onboarding, you know, that's what we would talk about. And again, I became a sales manager, after 3 months. That's all. The very first question when a rep would come to me, what does the company do, and how do they make money? Very first question. If you don't know what a company does and how they make money, how can you help them? If you don't understand, okay, so this company manufactures aviation parts. Our team territory is the Pacific Northwest. Man, we had wild stuff. And if they came to me like, I'm not sure, like, go back and guess, come back to me, I'll help you. And man, the skill set that's taught me, Scott, I can look at a company website and I know exactly like what because I know that's the key. How can I truly be empathetic if I don't even know what you do and how you make money? How can I truly have empathy if I haven't taken the time to really think through and prep? Okay, so Scott's in this is what the economy is doing. Prep. Okay, so probably these are some things that he's probably thinking about, etc. So I just feel like you could spend a majority of your onboarding process on that part of it and less on the product, because one will train you how to have a business conversation and one will train you on how to have a tactical. I think you need to do both, candidly, but I just feel like for whatever reason, Scott, like I think it's just this effort for qualification. Like, we want sales to be different than it is. It's like, we just want it to be this process. It's uniform. It doesn't matter what customer type you are, that there's this, it's really a trend in the last like probably 6-7 years, since probably 2015, maybe before, where I just really see it just be like,
I mean, Fermin can attest to this. We spent like a month in onboarding just teaching people about the title insurance industry before they would ever even hit the phones.
Oh, you guys do a killer job of that. You guys at Quality have figured that shit out quick.
We had to make people test out of it, literally like a written exam, that you understand how this business works and how these people make money and all that kind of stuff, because it was not something that and not an industry people knew a lot about. So let's go to Brian Barron.
What's up, Jake? Good to see you again.
Yeah, you too, man. How you been? For like a long time, no virtual chat or actual chat.
Yeah, we've been good. No, I'm just curious. Like, it seems like we jumped from the buyer's journey, like early in the sales process, right into CS without talking about implementation. So like, how does implementation fit into that process? And like, where should salespeople continue to make a mark within that process to make sure that the client is going to be set up for success so that CS can make a difference?
I love that question. It's such a good question, because again, it goes back to kind of the other part about if you own both sides of it, I'm again incentivized to really walk you through the process. So to take a step back from that, think about it like this. What's the number one competition that we lose out to in every deal? What's the number one competition that's almost universal?
That is quo.
No decision. Exactly. And the most common reason no decision happens is this. You're not in the room. A bunch of people get together with your proposal and they go, all right, guys, what do you think? Who's going to own this? And they look around, they look at the champion or whatever champion, they look at the economic buyer, whoever it is, and they go, man, like I can't own this. Okay. Nobody can own it. And then that's when you get some of my classics, like look, this is really interesting. Look, it's late summer. Everyone's out on vacation. So we're going to have to punt this till early Q4. It's early Q4. Oh, it's early Q4. Jake, we're in the middle of budget season right now. Like, we've got to follow up. Oh, it's Q1. We've got, my friends, those are all F off excuses. Those are the easiest, like anytime you hear that, if your stomach doesn't get sick, oh, we got to punt this because of blood. You screwed up. I'm just telling you, you didn't ask a tough question, etc. So anyway, I can go like really hard at that here in a second. Back to your implementation. So as a salesperson, again, I learned this as an enterprise seller, right? Which was, if I didn't make them feel comfortable, like Jake's got it, even if I wasn't doing the work, and how I would train my teams, I'll think about Glassdoor, like all these other companies, I would say, like, here's the vernacular. We'd say, look, look, Brian, and the best part is our team handles 100% of it. So let's walk you through our implementation plan. And guess what? When I said that, I meant the project management. We called out where the homework was here or here, but we said, look, our team's going to take care of you. We're going to take care of you. We're going to do this. We're going to take care of you here. We're going to do this. We're going to do this. And we would explain all the steps. So then the person's like, this isn't another project. This isn't another thing. Brian's going to take care of me. And I think too many sellers, they actually think that saying that the CS process is like easy and turnkey helps them. It actually shows an ignorance about how change management actually works. You're changing a workflow for somebody. And so by me saying like, oh, it's so easy to get started, and just, so in all of our sales decks at the end of the proposal, the last thing we covered was the plan for partnership, the implementation plan. So, and guess what? It's not that different for every customer. So it's not like you had to do like crazy, but guess what? You change it to, in June, we're doing this and we're doing this. And we train the sales team to talk through it, because that's how you get people over the status quo. If you want to know how to increase your close rate by 10 or 15%, start doing what I just said. If you start doing what I just said, you're going to get a bigger chunk of those. You're going to lose to no decision a lot less, right? And so, Brian, that's how I think. I think it's so critical that sales knows what the implementation looks like, but most importantly, makes the customer feel like Brian's got me. Now you have to live up to that. You can't just then, throw her over the fence. But that's the play, is you got to talk about implementation up front, and you got to make it feel like it's customized, even though if it's very similar for each person. That's where I've had success doing it.
Cool. Let's go to Emma. Walk Jake through your situation that you're running into. Oh, you're on mute, Emma. Emma, you're on mute.
Thank you. Hi, Jake. Thanks for being here. I put a comment in the chat after hearing you mention about not giving price away too early, or not giving price away, and how frustrating that can be. That's something we've had a tricky time with at my company. It's the premium product in this space. It would be like buying 5 softwares instead of 1.
What's the name of the company?
Prompt.
PROMPT.
PROMPT. But basically, anytime I have given price away, I've regretted it, because they're like, "Oh my God, that's so expensive," and they run away.
Right. Yeah. All right. So is it Pages? Is it Prompt 101 College Application Coaching?
It's promptemr.com.
Again, we'll see how quickly. Yeah, I mean, it looks like a pretty competitive space. Okay, so walk me through the example.
They sell against, Jake, they sell against Web PT and Stride Therapy and stuff like that.
Okay, so physical therapy software. Okay, so this is, okay, I know these tools. So this is like a way that you can manage your PT interaction. I just went through PT for my elbow, so I can't remember what they use, but you would, is this your client interaction, like with your customer, or is this the back end stuff?
Both. For them?
Yeah,
both.
For the PT. Okay, cool. So there's a very tactful way in a more complex enterprise sales to do both. And so I think what happens sometimes is we treat the next conversation almost like too important. So in a typical call, like let's say it happens. So you have a conversation with someone, blah, blah, blah. And there's just like primarily cold people that have never talked to you before, or these inbound people?
Inbound, they'll come on the chat, ask for pricing before seeing it.
Yeah, like, can I get on price? And then it's like, oh God, let me. So, okay, so you haven't had necessarily a demo with them yet with that group, and they hear pricing and they're like, it's really interesting. I feel like it's such a conundrum, and I'm not gonna have like a perfect answer for you, right? Because there is a group of those people that's totally fine that it happened. They were looking for a product that's like, XYZ. So I would think like, are there some questions I can ask to understand this person's price threshold? One, do you have a tool today? Right? Okay, that tool XYZ, what is it? Okay, well, we're going to be fairly competitive with them. let's set some time up to connect, right? Like, and again, I know you're the premium tool as a part of this. Like, we're going to be fairly competitive around these things. And again, without giving price, but we also do a few other things. So it'll be interesting to understand XYZ. Like, let me know if you have a quick 5 minutes. If you give me, and I think that's the other thing too, is let people know the time that you need to give them, as opposed to like, let me hop on a call and demo. So with that group of chat people in particular, there's a lot of noise there. So I would probably try to see and if they're not using anything and you look them up and they've got like 3 locations and you're the premium offering, like, then maybe I will throw out price and just let them DQ themselves. I don't know, potentially. And then for that other group, again, I'd probably just ask some other questions and then I would give them enough information to earn the right to have a conversation. And that's just the chat people, to where I'd say like, okay, great. Based on what you said, we're going to be pretty comparable, but we also do a few other things. So I think it'll be important to understand if those details are important to you or not. Let me know. I'm busy the rest of the day. Do you have 5 minutes tomorrow morning? And I can ask you a few questions. Something like that. That's really casual. On the demo, here's what I would say. If they come and it's the very first call, it is totally okay at the end of the demo to say, okay, great. Next steps is what I'm going to do is put together a plan based on the conversation. I'm going to put together a few ideas on how I think it might look. And then, that'll include pricing. It'll talk through that as well too. Realistically for a company your size, we're most likely looking at between $2,000 to $3,500 a month. Does that fit in your like wheelhouse? Is that, close? And then you'll hear their reaction to it. And so you'll hear them, and it's a pricing strategy. It's actually called anchoring. This book called Thinking Fast and Slow that talks about this at length. You only need to read half of it. But we as humans, we react to the $3,500 a month because we hear the high end of the price. And so if I say $2,000 to $3,500 per month, and the person says, "Oh, okay, that's maybe a little bit more," then I can say, "Okay, well, tell me more. Like, what budget did you have, etc." On the flip side, if like, "Oh, okay, that's great," then I'm like, "Okay, I'm going to the top end of that spectrum." So I'm a big fan of using ranges at the end of the first call. And again, what I do is I set them up very specifically. I say, "Great." I don't let them talk first. This is also key. I don't ever say what are next steps, or that never comes out of my mouth. What comes out of my mouth is like, "Hey, great, Scott. So based on what we talked about, I think I've got enough here. I'm going to put together an initial outline for us. I'll talk through what I think the partnership will look like. I'll talk about a little bit about pricing as well too. And then if I think that they're going to be price conscious, then I throw out the range. If I think based on the conversation they're not, then usually people will be like, okay, sounds good. And then that way I get a chance to walk them through it as a part of it. But just because these first call people you give pricing to, you probably are like disqualified. Like 70% of those people probably were not ideal fits. So I also wouldn't do that. But then I would look at my technique. How am I talking about pricing? Do I feel like I've shown enough value to really give that? Or is there a way I could, in like a very quick amount, give some additional value before I talk about why the pricing is what it is?
The delivery of pricing is super important.
Oh, so
not that you would do this, Emma, but I have listened to sales calls where Jake is the prospect and he says, "So, what's the cost of all this?" And the sales rep's response is $15,000.
great.
And then
Really
they say
excited for
literally
that.
nothing else.
That's expensive. That's my immediate remark. Everyone, 50. That's expensive.
And then you just say nothing. It's the strangest thing. Like that's not going to work. So not that you do that, but in general, people should pay attention to and audit like how they deliver price in terms of tone and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and again, pricing is a very interesting. I mean, it's honestly, it's one of my favorite parts of the sales process. Once you get like super confident, there's nothing better than saying the price and just, well, like you don't do it like Scott said, but when you do the lead and like, "Hey, based on our conversation, it's going to be 15,000," and then just shutting the fuck up and just sitting in that silence. That silence.
Even that is very different.
Oh,
Even that is
it's
very
totally different.
though.
It's totally different because I prefaced it and I did all those other things. There are two parts of the sales process that are the most awkward, beautiful moments. That is one of them. The other is when you're booking a meeting from a cold call and they're like, you kind of, you're to the end and you're like, "Great. So let me know, so typically, I need like a day or two. My calendar's a little, kind of crazy. What is, actually, hold on a second. Let me open up my calendar." just sit in it for like 4 or 5 seconds. How does Thursday at 4 look, John? And you just sit there in it. Like, hold on a second. Let me open up my calendar. And you just like sit in it. It's the most like gut wrenching. It's like 2 seconds, but it feels like 32 seconds. But there's times, and that's a whole like sales like technique. There's actually times when not to use pauses and times to use pauses. But anyway, those are, again, if I knew your scenario more specifically, I could give you like probably better advice. But one is like, I would understand part of your chat people are not going to be qualified. 2 is I would just really analyze my technique and start trying a few different ways to like pique interest, so where I could talk to them for 5 minutes to really understand some further challenges. And then at the end of the demo call, I would drive, typically here next steps is I'm put together a plan. We'll do X, Y, Z. I'll include some ideas on pricing. Then that's where the decision tree happens. If I think that they're going to be price sensitive, I'll toss out a price range. If not, I'll just book the meeting. So, again, like these are all just like techniques and things that based on their answers and experience, I kind of make a call on, but I'm always driving next steps. I'm never abolish the words from your mouth of like, what are next steps? Like, it's your product. You sold it 100 times. Why are you asking me? I've never bought this thing before. You tell me what the next steps are. It's baffling. It's baffling why people think asking what are next steps is a good technique.
All right. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
Jake, my question for you is, what is the best way that you have found to kind of map out like the different buyer personas and then coach people to sell differently to these different personas? What is your actual like process look like there?
Yeah.
But a lot of people keep it in their head.
No, don't do that. Well, that makes it really hard to get people up to speed. That's one thing.
Well, exactly.
I'm going to show you real quick. This is like ugly. Usually our deliverables are much prettier than this. But I just pulled this up really quick. So you asked about buyer personas, so I'll just talk about that for a second. So this is a lorem ipsum. So let me see if I can find a better one for you. It's like an actual customer or something that we've done here.
Well, the most important part has already been communicated, which is don't keep it all in your head. Get it out on paper somewhere.
Yeah. We try to talk about all these things. Again, think about it. Like, again, I don't know how you guys prep. Like, I'll tell you what my secret weapon, I was so paranoid in my 20s and early 30s. And it was kind of brutal to work for me sometimes because I was such a prep monster that, if you worked for me, you learned how to prep, because every sales meeting I went into, I'd already played out in my head at least 14 times. That's how how are you going to be an elite at anything if the only time your practice is on the game field? You can't. So I think it's just really important to call that out. So again, like I would just drill and I would think about these things, Scott. I would look at, and we kind of had LinkedIn profiles then, but you're like, okay, so Dennis is a 45-year-old, white dude who's like been at the same company for 25 years and, went to Minnesota University. Like, am I going to use words with him like leading edge, cutting edge, or instead am I going to communicate, proven, safe, etc.? Now, I was always willing to have my assumptions shattered, but I went in preparing for, okay, what's that guy going to say? Okay, he's going to want to know about X. And so when I go in here, I can build a persona. I can build conservative Sally, and I can build, leading edge Jim. And the things that they care about, the value props might be slightly different. And I'm telling you, sales is patterns. It is patterns like all day long if you want to see them, right? I think is an important part. So Scott, this is kind of the process that we use right here. And I'll just, if you remind me, Scott, I'll send you can share it with the guys. I'll send over this that they can do it. This is probably the most important part: goals, challenges, what we can do, and common objections. And just drilling on this. What's the goal? What does this person care about? What are they KPI'd on those things? What are the most common challenges? People say, what keeps me up at night, whatever that might be, right? As a part of it. And then what do we do? And again, not what do we do from a feature set. It's I'm just going to take one. A VP of operations for an industrial manufacturing company. What are their goals? Throughput, product quality, blah, blah, blah. Challenges, machines being down, supply chain issues in China, blah, blah, blah. What can we do? I don't say like, well, our leading logistics platform can make sure that your shipments. No, what do we do? Okay, so we help VPs of operations maintain uptime by 3.2% because of our connected IoT devices. Again, I'm just like making this stuff up. So it's really teaching reps and people how to think about solving customer challenges in terms of the business way that you would explain it versus the product feature way you'd explain it as a part of it. So yeah, this is kind of.
Do you talk at all about like why, like what their incentive is to fix it by each persona? One of the things I'm trying to drive at here is like, you probably get this too, but I'll see somebody's like V1 of a buyer persona kind of document or whatever, their playbook for that thing. And it's just very, very light. And there are lots of information missing that I think at least, well, shit, I would add that to this thing.
Totally. Yeah, I think like it's, I think you evolve it over time to add more of that. I think kind of phase one is like, if someone read this, if I gave this to maybe not like, someone's grandma or something, but if I gave this to someone who was, in, a certain level, could they read this and then go have a quasi-intelligent conversation about what that person's job is? Like that, a lot of this for me is about like, do you know enough about what this person does to, be able to have an intelligent conversation with them as like a phase one. So these are just some things, like I said, I'll share this with you guys. Yeah. This X factor one is maybe something a little different, Scott. We always try to think about, this is where I go in. This is where I would deviate from two different personas. Like, let's say I sell into CIOs, right? If you sell into IT, you sell into HR, you're dealing with some of those, well, not some, the most risk adverse groups, period, in organizations. And so if you deal with the CIO, you also have one persona of the CIO who wants to be, that woman. She wants to be the one who's speaking at conferences and doing the cutting edge. And and then you've got the other one who's like, I've been at the same company for 15 years. And so the way I'm going to communicate. And so again, even that changes, Scott, what I would put in here. The goals of the CIO who wants to be on the leading edge, they're different. The challenges are different than what we could. So I think most companies don't think about that layer. The difference between it's called the adoption curve. There's a great book by Jeff Moore. If you all haven't read it, it talks about innovators, early adopters, early majority, death, or actually death between early majority and early adopters, late majority and laggards. And all of your buyers fit that persona too. The way that they want to be communicated. I've got another thing.
I love that breakdown. A lot of people here sell now or have sold to heads of sales, VPs of sales. So
that's easier.
Yeah, but people don't do what you're talking about. They lump every VP of sales under one category. There's a big difference between somebody who's been a VP of sales for 25 years and somebody who's been there for 2 years. There's a difference between somebody who's a VP of sales at a brand new company for them, they're new in the role, and somebody who's been VP of sales at a company for 7 years in a row. Those are two different kind of personas. So people don't dig in and bifurcate those out enough,
That's exactly it. Here, I'll show you this other thing real quick here. This is like, this is the other way that we do it. This is about, we do like competency, like sales competency work. And this is about, one of our clients, one of the competencies is important for them is multi-threading. And so as a part of multi-threading, we've got 3 core behaviors that a salesperson needs to master to be amazing at multi-threading. One of those is adapting communication. And so, again, and so this way you might not even have to have all the buyer personas, Scott. You could have a persona, and then you could have a document like this, right? Where you can think about right here, where you've got, how do I talk to somebody who's an innovator versus an early adopter, et cetera. And this can really help you to kind of have a more executive presence. Again, what I see, and I've got, I think there's a slide, is it maybe before it? Yeah, this is executive conversations too, which is like, why so many of you probably get delegated is you just talk about things that nobody cares about. Like you talk about like permissions and like admin features. I'm like, why are you showing me any of this? I'm never going to use it. Like I've got people for that. So there's kind of two stages, this kind of persona, Scott, to think about. It's, are you able to have an executive conversation? And if you're not, that's okay too, guys. It takes time. You got to learn this. You got to mess it up. Bring in your boss, bring in the CEO. They love doing this stuff. And two is, if you want to get better at this too, am I adapting my conversation, the nuances of how I'm explaining something based on the adopter type that they might be. So just some other kind of nuances of personas that I think we don't think enough about. There's like the specific persona, but then within that, there's how do I adapt my communication based on the level of the person and the stage. And maybe this is like the 401 stuff, but this is how I think about it, especially if you're going to be an elite seller. You got to be thinking about the 401. I'm thinking about all those things.
And I think also if you're somebody who's building a sales org, you got to be thinking about the 401 as well.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally.
Who else has a question for Jake? Oh, sorry, Jake.
No, go ahead. No, so again, I'm throwing kind of a lot of it out there, but again, go back to that customer journey I talked about at the very, very beginning. Do you want to talk to that person who can adapt their customer style, understand how to talk to them? Yes. Do I want to talk to someone who can explain things to me that I can find on the website or G2? No. Not going to add value. So anyway, that's my high horse there.
Who's got a question for Jake?
All right. What else is out there? What are you all working through? Happy to go deep. Be selfish. That's the other thing I always say in these things is people tend to not be selfish enough. They're like,
yeah,
all right. We'll see if
Jake,
we've got any.
Here we go.
I got something if you don't mind. And Jake, thanks for doing this. This has already been really awesome. So I read, I've been thinking about it for a while, and I read Keenan's gap selling a month or so ago, and I thought it was super interesting and just a different take on amalgamation of a lot of different sales methodologies. But the thing that I asked a question to him when he wrote a post a couple weeks ago about somebody, a marketer that was going through a sales process that was just exhausted with how many conversations she had to have with just to get to your point earlier, like baseline pricing for what she was ready to buy to a certain extent. I commented on his post because I was curious how he thought about this. I see eventually, I align with you in that one day pretty soon, the consumer is going to force us to not be able to do that. It's going to be competitive advantage for people that have a really seamless, like self-service customer flow. But his methodology and a lot of methodology are so deeply rooted in effective discovery. And he was just so adamant about the fact that the information that you need to uncover in a gap selling environment cannot be done through asynchronous communication and not being like on the phone, on a Zoom, and having, which I get to a certain extent, but also like, how do you solve that in the future where you need to get really important information to have layered questioning, but you're not necessarily in a dialogue one-to-one with somebody?
Yeah, I mean, again, different parts of the sector, this is going to happen faster, right? So again, I would think kind of complex infrastructure security, we're going to be a ways away to where more and more of that moves to kind of some version of like customer guided journey. Here's, again, we already have a good proxy for this. Look what happened to sales during COVID. That, I mean, if that doesn't teach you, again, I cannot tell you, Scott, can you imagine how many sales leaders, if we would have polled sales leaders on January 1st of 2020, how many of you think a $2 million deal can get done 100% virtually? I don't know what the results would have been, but my guess is like 10% would have said
single
yes,
digit.
maybe.
I was going to say single digits.
Yeah, 5 to 10. Well, it happened a lot, and again, I think that there is a type of person that needs to ask questions, and there's a type of person that wants that. And I think a lot of this goes down to the quality of the discovery too. If a customer, and again, think a lot of this might be positioning, meaning if the discovery feels like it's for you, I'm not going to find value in it. But instead, it's like similar whenever, I think it was Emma. Yeah, when Emma asked me the question about the pricing thing, if I can make it sound like in a way like, hey, let's hop on the phone for 5 minutes. I just want to understand a couple of key variables. Tell me the time frame. Tell me hey, John, do you have 2 minutes? I just have a couple of quick clarifying questions. Okay, that makes sense to me, as a part of this. And then I could ask some of those gap type questions. But instead, when you say, hey, Jake, can you just hop on a call real quick? Hey, Jake, can we set up 30 minutes later today? it doesn't make it seem like you're listening to me. I don't really feel heard as buyers. So I think if you can acknowledge what I'm getting at, hey, absolutely, Jake, I'm going to do that. I just got like maybe 2 quick clarifying questions. It's, it'd probably like save us both a little back and forth. Like, let me know if you're around for 5 minutes at XYZ and I'll give you a quick call on your cell. Cool. And I'll call you. So I think, and then you could probably get into some of the gap style questions, which I think are fine. Like, but again, there's a certain type of buyer where I need to ask questions to get them to realize they have a problem. We call that create the need, right? Other people I don't need the need's already been created. So me, I don't necessarily need to do that. I think it's more, and if I could add kind of a final point here, the problem with a lot of discovery processes is they're not built to identify the level of intent someone's at early in the process, meaning the processes are very built to qualify someone on a wide variety of factors versus maybe asking a question, something like, okay, hey, John, so I talked to a lot of people that have done some research. It appears that you've done a good amount of research. So tell me, if I said, look, Jake, I've researched, I know pricing, etc. I've done this. Tell me a little bit about where you are on that journey. Okay. And now, by the way, I'm not going to like 100% believe that they're exactly there, but I'm going to like fade that way. And then I'll ask some probing questions to see if they actually are there. So I think most sales processes are going to have some smart questions at the front to, hey, who am I dealing with here? And not trying to force people through a 25-minute discovery when candidly, it's just for you to fill out some fields in Salesforce.
Yeah, you're just checking a box.
Well, my boss told me to.
Exactly.
I can't move it to stage 4, Scotty, if they don't,
right.
If I don't get that economic buyer in there.
The field is locked. The field is locked.
So then I'm just going to put bullshit in there.
Terry, do you want to ask your question? It's kind of like a sidecar to Ryan's question, maybe.
Yeah, thanks, Scott and Jake. Thanks. This has been great. I was trying to break down Ryan's question, and I'm in that same boat where if I'm ready to buy something, don't tell me, the story of the childhood of the founder and all that. Like, I'm ready.
And
I'm
that
ready
we
to
raised
go.
from Andreessen Horowitz.
Right. Like, if I'm going to go buy a car, like, hey, I'm here to buy a car, and you talk to a young salesperson, they can't sell you a car, right? Without that whole process that drives me crazy. Just ask me what color I want, man. Like, let's go. So anyway, yeah, that was the point. Was how do you value? How can you? How much can you? How much stock can you put in a customer's own discovery process that they did in advance? And I think, Jake, you're kind of touching on this. Like, maybe you try to validate how much have they done, how much do they know, but yeah, it seems like a lot of cases it's either like I've got to go through my process and check boxes because my boss is over my shoulder, or I don't trust or value what you are telling me right now, so I'm going to run you through my process regardless. So yeah, how much can you?
Somewhere in between,
or should you?
Yeah, it's somewhere in between on that. I would say again, I would ask some of those questions up front. Not that the worst question to start with an inbound lead is, so tell me how much you know about blah blah. Ugh, yuck. Like, why? Like, just ask there's a lot smarter way that I could ask that question that actually helped me to understand how much do they actually know about this. Like, okay, great. So it sounds like you've done some research on XYZ. Look, typically when people are doing that, there's 6 core things they're looking for. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, out of those, how would you rank top priorities for you? This one. And now what's going on in the back of my head? How to competitively differentiate. Now I'm like, okay, tell me more about that. So I would just think like, I think that there's some smart ways that we can ask these questions where you actually could have your cake and eat it too. You could probably get your, BANT or medic or insert, med pick or whatever it is that you use. And you could better understand that process. And I think for me in particular, I just feel like, again, it's like, why frustrate somebody? Why start that first interaction with a friction point as opposed to like, how do we make it less friction as a part of this? So I think sales teams right now, candidly, are just not being trained to ask these questions. Sales teams right now are just not being trained, Terry, to like ask those types of questions. They're like, okay, great. So tell me about, what are your top 4 priorities? And that's where they kind of start. And then they usually go down some rabbit hole because they don't have a script written out and they are like asked like 17. So I would just encourage most of you that the easiest way that you could get started is think about a few questions that you could ask. It does not necessarily have to be the first question, but it could be, let's go back to that chat example. Okay, a couple of quick kind of questions here. Tell me how much, have you done, like, which of these 6 things are most important to you? Boom, 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 boom. These. Okay. Out of these, how would you force rank them? Okay, this, and this. Okay, so what I can do is let me put together a couple of details around how we do that and how we differentiate. And then we can set up a quick, maybe 5-minute call and I can talk you through it. Does that work, John? So maybe I could do that digitally, add a little bit of value, show them that I get it. And then I'm like, oh, I'm looking forward to meeting with that person. So I just think there's some questions that people need to ask to that, like, first, 3 to 5 minutes of the process. And then pretty quickly I can understand how qualified this person is or not, and not qualified, but more of like, where are they at in their level of like knowledge of the space and intent.
We got about 15 minutes or so left. Go ahead, Cynthia.
Yeah. Can I jump in?
Yeah.
Hey, Jake,
please
thanks for your thoughts. I really love your takes on different aspects on the sales side. And from a customer success perspective, I'd really love to get your take on it. You touched on so many things. Yep. And one of the things we know with the changing buyer's journey now that, clients are just craving a frictionless journey, which is part of the reason they don't want to talk to salespeople, right? They want to press a button and then just buy what they buy in many cases. So how would you describe, or how did you implement in the past, the handoff from sales to customer success? Because I think that can create some friction, because a client's like, now you're dumping me off on someone else. They're going to ask me all the same questions that I answered during the buying process. Because we all know, I was in sales for 20 years. No one has a clean sales force. So like, there aren't necessarily great notes for the CS to pick up on. How did you do that? Or what would you suggest? Or what are your thoughts on that handoff?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I think it requires to you to have a counterpart on the sales side who believes, who is in line. I think without having some level there, it's really not that complex. Meaning, if I was, and I'll just tell you kind of the steps that I would take if I were in your shoes. One, remember I talked at the beginning about the implementation plan. What I would do is I would probably get my sales leader aligned around, look, if you set them up for success and you walk them through this, it's going to make us all better. Like, it's going to make your sales team close more deals. So I would get the sales team to talk about that ahead of time. In best-in-class companies, we see, and it's not as applicable at the SMB level, but at the mid-market, CS is usually on the kickoff call. Like, CS is brought in at like that step before the deal actually closes. And I think that's what we did a really good job of, is my team was encouraged to bring over in the CS, or whoever is going to be that CS rep, like at the very end of the sales process. So it didn't, hey, and now I'm like, Lisa, I've talked her through this, this is what it is. So Lisa gets to hear firsthand, this is what's happening, etc. So those are 2 things that I would probably do, is make sure my team was well educated and they had the implementation. And then I would try to see how CS can get involved pre-sales. That would be, if you said, Jake, what do I think you could do to move the needle on that so they don't feel that? That would be one thing that I would do. The other issue I see is that a lot of CS teams are not equipped to have business conversations. They're equipped to have reactive service-based conversations.
Yep.
And so this monthly business review, we get on it and you just review my usage. If I'm a decision maker, I don't get how does this benefit me? So I think it's on the sales handoff side, the more that you can get education pre-sales, again, and especially if mid-market and enterprise deals, it's almost required that CS should be on the late stages of the deal every time. It's going to help you close deal. There's a guy, you might know him, Scott. He wrote a book called Deal Storming. You ever heard, what's that guy's name? I don't remember his name, but anyway, he did some data about this. Like, the more people that you have on your side, it helps to close more deals, like 4 times more with like 4 people or something like that. So I would try to see how I can get CS pre-sale. And then what I would do is make sure that I would ask when my CS reps or account management, depending on what the titles are, hey, Jake, so, hey, I'm working with this account, and they're struggling here. Great. Who is the account and how do they make money? I'd ask them the exact same questions, because if you can't answer that question as a CS, how do you know what my use case really is? How do you know if you don't know what my business is, how can you, and so it's kind of universal. I'm going to ask anybody, who is that account? How do they make money? Because if you don't know what their business does, how do you know what the actual use case is for them? So, I think it's kind of a mix of CS training and CS getting up the funnel. I think if you did any of those, if you even just implemented just the CS side of it, is where your CS team, they had a 3-point checklist that they went through, or you started requiring them to have a 5-minute handoff call with the reps. Or I think there's some things that I would do if I can't control the sales side, that I would do to just level up to where, the customer wants to talk to me. My people just aren't talking about admin features and this is that, and that your team is actually trained to have a business conversation with somebody. So.
Yeah, oh my God, once again, you just touched on so many things. You're talking about monthly calls, but it's the QBRs, the quarterly business reviews, and it's all about usage. It's like me. Like, why would a client get on there if it's not about them?
If you're
it's
not
about
adding
having them adopt.
We've got clients that run amazing monthly and quarterly business views, and we've got a very, if you actually ping me on LinkedIn and just remind me, and Scott, I'll send this to you. We've got a really good kind of QBO monthly business review framework that starts with, great, let's talk about the business objectives that we talked about whenever we signed the deal. It's this and this. Let's talk about how we're pacing toward the business objectives. Then we don't start to talk about, well, Susan couldn't get access. No, this is not a monthly or quarterly business view, is not a conversation about usage. We have another call that talks about that. There's a monthly or quarterly business review where we talk about your business, and we talk about how are we doing in achieving the business outcomes. Nobody buys it to get usage. They buy it for a business outcome. I want them to use it because I know if they use it and I can show them the business outcome, they're going to keep working with me. So, again, I would just think about how can I level up the quality of conversations? We've got a pretty good framework for it that I'll share with the whole group, Scott, if you or if you, Cynthia, want to ping me.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think you also, just my final note, because I love everything you said, the calls, a lot of these customer success, especially if they're early in their career, they don't understand how to have a business call. And it's essentially a classic discovery call, but and also not being servicing, because client services is they do the tickets, they do all the reactive stuff. The customer success, the customer success should be proactive, helping them engage and understanding their industry. So I think everything you said was just so on point. Thank you for that.
Yeah. And again, you're going to find any one of those will increase that value. Again, people want to talk to people that add value, and that's really what it all comes down to. Yep. Terry brings in people. Yep. That's right. That's 100%.
I'm going to ask a question. It's not really a question. It's more of a statement from my grouchy contrarian friend, Richard Harris, who doesn't agree with the buyer's journey. This is what he commented. I just put it in the chat. So I would love to hear you rebut his
Make sure you send him this part of the recording too.
Exactly. I'll clip this part and send it his way. This is his take. The buyer's journey is fake news. It's all about the buyer's experience through the seller's journey. What do you think about that?
I feel like you're just trying to rephrase something that's a little bit
semantics.
You're kind of saying the same thing. Like
it's a little bit of semantics.
The buyer's journey is fake news. It's all about the buyer's experience through the seller's journey. Isn't that the buyer journey? But I think I know what he's saying. And so if I can, not necessarily maybe rebut, but, give Richard my 2 cents. Not that I have a problem rebutting Richard. I think the last part here is actually really, as for how much research they've done, that really only applies to inbound. So what you're saying, Richard, is that the customer experience is different if they come inbound. And that where I should triage them in the process is different if they come inbound. That's exactly what I'm saying. It's like almost, if someone is cold, I don't really expect them to like, there probably are going to be people with a deviation. And I think where a lot of reps are screwing up right now is they're not pre-educating people before the cold call. Again, like I saw Nick Capozzi on the call. What's that? Is that Nick up there? Is that Nick? I see it there.
That's him. He's here. Yep.
So Nick's, if you guys don't know Demo Stack, I'll give him a shout. What if I'm meeting with a CFO? I've got a 1.5 minute pre-recorded demo that I did for another CFO, and it has another CFO talking about how great the product is. I said, hey, John, I'm really looking forward to the conversation. I thought you might enjoy this quick 55 seconds that gives you a high level prior. Actually, one of your, which has the CFO from so-and-so talking. You could record a demo or a walkthrough or some version of that, or you could just send them like a demo that's like for their specific use case ahead of time. How many of you like to at least like play around with something to get some context first. Like how many of you like a little context, like lots of people. And so I think you could get a higher education level, but most sales reps don't do any education before the call. Nothing. You just show up for the first phone call. You sent them nothing. And I'm not saying everyone is going to do anything about it, but if 25%, 1 in 4, which seems like a really low rate, watch the demo, or they look at this like LinkedIn post from one of the thought leaders who's one of their peers or whatever, where does that going to put their mindset coming into the first call? Probably in a lot more positive. So I would argue that Richard is making my point, that he is literally saying that the buyer's experience is different if leads are inbound. And I think we could do a better job of changing that too for cold, but we've got to, again, it takes a little bit of work.
Nice.
Which I don't think we want to do.
Shout out. I'll have to clip that part and send it to him.
Please do.
And see what he says. We're coming up on time. You want to leave us with any parting thoughts?
Let's see. Be like water, adapting the buyer's journey. Okay, all right. I don't know if he's calling BS on me or not. Parting thoughts. Look, I think a lot of you might be like, holy shit, like there is just a lot of but if you really think about the theme here of like my career and why I've been successful in my career, and I've closed, I don't know, thousands of deals, and I've closed 7-figure deals. I've closed $35 get your credit card over the phone deals. Is I really, and again, I can sell into any industry, because if I believe in a product, I can get the motivation to research and understand my customer. And so whether it's the persona stuff we talked about and adapting the way you communicate, or it's the customer experience, if you become obsessed with being really good at that, being really good at understanding your customer and giving a shit and again, you don't have to like, I'm not the most empathetic person on the planet, right? It's actually, Skills Finder said it's like my last skill. But what I am is a mediocre listener and someone who knows so much about my customers and can deliver so much value that you don't have to want to be my best friend, because I'm going to make sure that I'm a resource for you. And so for all of you, I would just encourage you to think about the customers are going to want to talk to people who can be resources. And are you, again, either aligning your process to where your team is a resource at each step, or you are a resource at each step, or giving them resources because they don't have to talk to you at each step. So I think it all comes full circle, that if you are focused on, really helping people get to the right outcome, you're focused on being a resource, that is not going to go out of style for the time being. So.
All right, Jake, good luck. Good luck at your game tonight. Appreciate you spending some time with us. Connect with Jake on LinkedIn, follow him, check out his company, Scaled. And he also has his own podcast called the Jake Dunlap Show. You might want to check that out.
Yeah, definitely. Love that. Thanks for the plug there.
Appreciate
Great
everybody.
to meet all of you. Make sure, feel free to connect. It's good to see some familiar faces, some people. John, some other of these folks I haven't seen on LinkedIn in a minute here. Nick Capozzi's now, Brian, and a lot of you. So it's good to see a lot of familiar faces. And I'll try to go out and I'll do my best, Scott. My goal is to take one charge, get 6 rebounds, maybe 6 dimes, put up 4 points.
Do your job.
That's my goal, man.
As they say.
All right, we'll see y'all.
Bye, everybody.